8 months prior to when Al Diaz contacted that collector, he had Facebooked Lonnie Lichtenberg and some other stuff that was related to the provenance of the collection. Really had a close relationship with Jean-Michel. I only had seen him in passing up in Lonnie's apartment on 12th Street. Sometimes in the apartment, sometimes going down the stairs, you know, handfuls of times. But it became less and less, I guess, because Jean-Michel went on tour and stuff like that. But that was, you know, no tight relationship. I had just seen him in passing. That was it. We're both going there for probably about the same thing.
So, samo started out as a expression we used in reference to a mutual friend of ours. Her name was Elizabeth, she's a high school friend of ours. And what happened was we developed a relationship with her parents where we all smoked weed together. And it became kind of like dull after, you know, not that long, I guess maybe after a couple of weeks of doing this over and over and over again. And we started referring to her as Samo, because it was always the same old thing every time we went over to her house. Whatever, it was one of those stoned out teenage things. And we, at this stage in our lives, we were hanging around downtown in the, you know, what would become the art world. Downtown Manhattan, Lower East Side, and that's where we wrote a lot of our stuff. So it kind of got attention from the art world and from people in that part of the city. And eventually we ended up with an article in the Village Voice, which, you know, in terms of a measurement, we succeeded in our hype project, because we caught the attention of the media, and from there, the 15 minutes of fame that we received from that kind of affected our friendship. I guess at this point we were going in separate directions anyway, but just stuff started happening as a result of like our too large egos being, you know, stimulated to you know, out of control. This upper middle class Jewish kid from Riverdale. He was from Riverdale. I think it was Riverdale. Was it? Yeah, it was Riverdale. And he moved to the city. His clientele was mostly artists, young artists. And apparently Jean was hanging there, because it was around the time when he might have been living or staying with Alexis Adler. It was early 80s, and he was up the block, basically 2 blocks away. So he probably frequented Lonnie's and would hang out there, and he already he started using cocaine, so it makes perfect sense that quite a few drug dealers that I knew back then would trade drugs for art, and I knew quite a few people who did that. It was a very seedy kind of, you know, I mean, I'm sure it didn't start out that way, but it didn't seem like there was much cleaning going on. I almost sat on a syringe on the couch there once, and it started deteriorating, but there were always more than like a half a dozen people when I went there to visit, and it would seem like a kind of a place to hang, to get high, a little den. And it just kind of got seedier and seedier over the years, and I stopped. I wasn't using cocaine in the early 80s much. So I stopped frequenting it, but apparently Lonnie's appetite for drugs became worse and worse and bigger, like it happens to so many of us. And the last time I saw Lonnie, I think it was in the 90s, and he was a bum in the subway. And I looked at him and I said, "Lonnie?" And I think he said, "Yeah." And it was, my heart stopped. Even though I was strung out at the time, he was like really far gone. And I think he died of AIDS in 2003. But yeah, so this work comes from that period when Lonnie was, had a little parlor art, His social skills were slightly askew. And he was very guarded, yet I didn't always respect other people's boundaries. So, he'd like come to your house and make a fucking mess, but but at the same time be very defensive. One thing that was very revealing was one time I bumped into him after not seeing him for maybe a year and a half or something. It was around the time that they were filming Downtown 81, and we stayed up all night walking around the West Village, tripping. And at dawn, at some point, he turns to me and tells me that he knew that he was going to be a famous artist and that he was going to die young. So he was aware of himself and of his destiny, rather. The last time I saw Jean was I was living with my wife at the time, Jane, on First Street, right across from Katz's Deli. And I heard him yelling from outside, and there he was with 2 panels. He came upstairs and gave me a painting that said, "To Samo from Samo." And that was the last I saw of him. Subsequently, I sold those paintings while he was still alive, and which I regret, but I never saw him alive again, or dead, really. I never saw him again. That was the end of it. I don't know where those paintings are.